And today's session will be going through this wiki, so don't feel like you need to take notes. And hopefully this isn't a project you would have to take notes on anyway. And we're hoping these changes feel pretty intuitive to you all. But I did go ahead and share out the link to this wiki as well. And I'll also just go ahead and point out that we do have, if you're on our cu.edu//eComm website, you can always find this resource by going to help, which is just going to take you to our need help start here, an index with links to all of the existing wikis that we have out there. And so we do have up there in our Salesforce as well as our Marketing Cloud tabs in the training section, this 2023 preferred or preference and business unit optimization project. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I know nobody has extra time these days, but I do want to talk briefly about the overarching goal of this project and this optimization. And as I alluded to earlier, this shouldn't be a big change for y'all. So it could beg the question, well, why do that project then if it's not a value add for y'all? Well, there's a lot of back-end management to how preferences are managed as well as our business units. And throughout the years, we've just continued to grow and grow and grow. And that initial model, we didn't anticipate that we were going to have that level of growth. And so in order to not only save money for us right now, these business units cost money. So having fewer of those is going to be a great immediate win. But then there's also all these resources that go into managing these items. So that's just a lot of time for our internal resources that rather than being focused on things that, as I mentioned, are not scalable or not set up to be the best technically, this will allow us to rethink things, focus our attention elsewhere. So don't feel like you need to know these items. I wanted to call out, just if anybody is interested, there's 2 projects in particular we really kind of put on the roadmap for the future, a bit in the future, so don't feel like you need to know about it right now. But one of those could be like a simple sending method, which I know some people think Marketing Cloud is really complicated, and that's fair. For a lot of needs, it absolutely is. And so if it could be easier, if you didn't have to restart data extensions or creating an email and having less issues in it where it rendered really well, those would all be great benefits and save a lot of people a lot of time. So that's one direction that we'd like to move in the future. And then after that as well, there's opportunity to become more advanced in Marketing Cloud. That if we're a bit leaner, we might be able to, in that way, be a little bit more robust. So just that different sort of specialization long-term should allow us to be more agile and support more diverse needs. So I will get off my soapbox now. Again, just why these changes are happening, even though it's probably not going to impact you today. But everything I just said, that doesn't mean it's not going to serve you well in the future. All right, we will go ahead and continue on with this wiki, and I'm not going to go through user impacts, and I say that because we've been communicating with y'all. I think our first message was mid-April, and I know Kayla sent out a message even yesterday, getting folks in the room for this session as well. And so with this optimization project, depending on where you've been, where you're going, your experience might be slightly different, which is why we decided to send out emails to all of you, and they were all very customized so that you would see what your particular changes are going to be. So those emails, hopefully, were very helpful to you. And that leads me to where I'm not going to go through those impacts right now. We've kind of already made that turn on what you might be anticipating in your account. And so today, this session is where we're actually flipping the switch, if you will, where you might be seeing more changes. And so today I am going to be going through this user training tab, which is going to be much more what changes you should expect to see and how you should adapt to them, but it should be pretty minor. Despite this, what looks like a very long list right now, I know, but I didn't want to leave anything out. So these are the points that we'll go ahead and go through today. I'm going to be looking at an example of an account or a real UCCS account, but I'll want you all to log into your Marketing Cloud account and kind of look at what I'm looking at and just see if you have any questions. So when you do need to get an email out the door, you feel comfortable. So the first two things that you might notice, and it's mostly like the organization across Marketing Cloud. It could be your business unit name might be changed a little bit. So we'll look at that. And the second piece we'll look at is in Content Builder. So you might be in a business unit now that you are sharing with other individuals, and we really want to keep things organized. So there's going to be a folder structure as well as a consistent naming convention to keep that organization. Make sure no one's stepping on each other's toes. And so one of your roles moving forward will just be to make sure that if you are in one of these shared business units, don't create clutter for other people, and just be sure to upload all your assets to your particular folder. And so I'm going to go ahead and look in Marketing Cloud. I'll give you all a second to log in if you're not there yet. So you might, like I mentioned, see a slightly different, a very different, or it could be the exact same. It really depends. Business unit name. And I did go ahead and reassign your business unit today. And so yesterday, it might have even looked a little different, or even 8 a.m. It might have looked different than it does right now. But is everyone at least seeing a business unit listed up here when you log in? And if I could get a thumbs up, that would be great. Cool beans. All right, so the next area that we're going to look at is Content Builder, or I have mine set to default here, so you may need to hover over the house icon, go to or Email Studio, and then Email in order to get to this overview area. But from here, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Content tab. And so everybody, like just by default, you have in your account a Content Builder folder, which is the top parent folder. But underneath that, if you're in a shared business unit now, you might be seeing names for all of the different groups in which are sharing this business unit. So they're named pretty clearly. You should know which one is yours, but if you're not sure, we might have missed something. That absolutely could happen. This was a big lift, a lot of manual work, so we could have absolutely missed something. Please let us know. But moving forward, we'd like your content to exist in these folders. You are welcome to create other folder structures underneath, but I'd call your parent folder if you work in cybersecurity. So you can see how the Career Center has different folders underneath it and even further folders underneath them. There's kind of infinite nesting there. So you're highly encouraged to organize underneath your folder. But what we do want to avoid is folks adding content to this general Content Builder folder.
Hey, Melanie, can I ask you a question about that? Do you recommend a folder structure? So for example, I mean, mine's pretty light. I'm the UCCS cybersecurity folder, and I haven't done a lot, and I should be doing more, but the program's growing, so I foresee us doing more. Would you, oh, and I even see it there. Like I was going to wonder, should I put images all in one folder? Should I, do you have a structure you recommend?
It totally depends. And I say that as I have some clients who are in there every day creating an email, and I have some clients who are in there once a year or something. And so I think it makes more sense to think about what your communications are, like what that breakdown is. I personally don't do a breakdown, and Kayla, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't do a folder with what type of asset it is, and that's because there is a type here, and there's a filter icon as well, so that if I am looking for certain things, I can go ahead and filter. So I don't see value in that. I tend to have like, what is the project? Like CU connections we send every week. And then underneath that, I have every year. And then underneath that, I have every month.
Okay, thank you.
Kayla, do you have any recommendations on that or what you've seen successful at UCCS?
I think similar to what you just described, based on the project or the series of communications, I usually group things that way for my own organization, and it seems to be pretty seamless as far as when I need to go find something from 2 years ago. I know exactly logically how to find it, rather than sifting through all images or all emails in a general folder.
Yeah, there's some accounts I'll see just events and that's enough. They only host like 5 events, or some people they have their own folder for one event because there were 30 communications around it. So just really depends, but you have that flexibility. And furthermore, once you do set those up, when you're creating assets, you can of course put them where you want, but you can also retroactively go ahead and move assets. You're able to do so either in bulk actions, go ahead and move and get them into these different areas. There's also, if you don't want to do it in bulk, there's a quick action on the far side here. We'll drop down arrow where you can say move. So many of you used to be in a different business unit and you are now in a new business unit. And so we did some work on the back end to move a lot of these assets over. Thank you, folks from the system team and Kayla. You have been busy the last month, but it's been going well. So something that you might see in your account, and I guess I'll click on cybersecurity, is that we moved assets from the previous business unit that were uploaded since, what was it? January 1st of 2022. Oh, I should look at my wiki real quick and make sure. So you're not going to have all of your assets there, but it's going to be like almost 18 months of content. So if you're feeling like right now, like, oh, I had an event invite during COVID that actually we didn't send out, and I think we're going to use it again. That stuff does still exist for a moment in time. So if you're thinking of those things, you're going to need to ask your eComm specialist to recover them. But there will eventually be a point when you're not going to be able to recover that old content. So we've got a little bit of a runway here to think about anything that didn't fall in that window of content that you'd used since the 1st of January of 2022. You will also notice that we did move your content. There's this modified date. We had to do it in 2 batches. So you might see a date of 6/9 on some of them. We did a second push, either updating anything that got changed or anything that was newly added after 6/9. We did another push on 4/11. So one of the communications that you received last week, I know Kayla mentioned there was a freeze in Content Builder, that anything that got uploaded during that time, we probably did not move over. So again, if you've uploaded assets either on Monday and Tuesday, those were not captured. I'd hope you'd be able to just re-upload them again to your new account if needed. If you need to ask your eComm specialist for those old assets, you can as well. But hopefully everything's there. Are folks seeing content or assets within their folder in Content Builder? Love it. Thanks, Mary. So I do have a comment in here. Oh, you guys, I am lying. July 1, 2022. This is why. Not January, since July 1, 2022. So content from almost a year ago was moved. Anything exceeding that was not. So if you want that older content moved through the year, you can ask to have that recovered from your eComm specialist, but there is a caveat here. Some of these old business units that you used to be in are going to exist through 2023. Some of these we need to actually delete. This is where we're actually getting cost savings for not having these business units. So those do have a shorter time frame. If you scroll down here, I do have a little bit more information for those where your business unit is getting deleted, occurring July 31st. So in your case, if we want to recover any of these assets, we'll need to do so before the July 31st time frame. So this will impact anybody who was previously in any of these business units. I'll pause there, just see if are there any users that fall into this bucket, or Kayla, do you notice anybody?
The communications team and our marketing team, we were in the common marketing one. So, that will definitely be something we have to pay close attention to.
Absolutely. Next, I do have a note on here about Salesforce send emails, but I don't want to confuse anybody too much. I think most people go through a guided send when they send an email, meaning, let's see, an email. Oh, right, this is where I can say my content type being email. I think most people go and say save and send and go through this guided send wizard, but I'd like a thumbs up if there's anybody who uses Salesforce send emails. If you don't know, you don't need to know, but if you do know, that means interactions and Salesforce send emails, just an alternative way to get an email at the door. Okay, I won't belabor that one. Irrelevant for this group. So moving on. Send classification, sender profiles, and delivery profiles. Somewhat similar with everyone being in one business unit. There's going to be more listed out. So we needed to do some slight changes in order to keep things as organized as possible. So in order to show this, I'm going to, actually, this is a perfect window to showcase this. Well, I take it back. I'm going to go back because if you have an email open as well, or if you can find an email. I should have just used it. I'm in my preview and test of this email. This is just an area where we can see what has populated here now. And so you'll see within the sender profiles, they're now preceded with a little acronym or an abbreviation that should capture your group. I am honestly not familiar enough with these to say this. I'm sure Kayla is, but it should also be fairly intuitive to you. So as these get added in the future, they will have that same preceded here. So they should be alphabetized for you at least, or grouped. So everyone's seeing their sender profiles in there. And these were, I believe, Kayla, correct me if I'm wrong, that we moved all of these. It wasn't just a certain portion of them. So everything should exist.
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Nancy. All right, good old tracking. So tracking data within Salesforce. For those migrating to a new business unit, you've moved. We did not migrate this. There is no good way to do it. We have a solution. We're not out of luck. But as far as being able to view that data, as a lot of you often do after a send, of going into tracking and sends, you are not going to have that historical information. But what I do want to call out is similarly to the folder structure that we've seen in Content Builder. We've carried that across a lot of areas here. And so you'll see the same thing in the folder structure within tracking. So this is also an area that if you've done a send and you didn't put it in the tracking folder before you hit send, that's perfectly fine. You could always go ahead and move it after the fact into another folder. I'm not going to go ahead and do that. So that's an area that we'd also like to not have a lot of clutter. I know people are going to forget this more so than the content builder area, but please do your best to remember to put it in a tracking folder. And so I will also call out that when you are sending an email via the guided send method, why marketing class?
I'm sorry, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I missed this. I'm just looking at the send folder and I'm not seeing the emails I've sent in the past. I'm not sure if you said something about that before, but is there a way to find those emails?
So it depends, or sorry, you're not able to find the email you've sent in the past or the email
Correct.
send.
Like, so under tracking.
Okay, so yes, tracking did not transfer over.
Okay.
So
okay.
you've probably moved to a new business unit that tracking did not move. So yes, it is going to be blank. It will not populate until you do your first send. However, however, and sorry, I'll get there in 1 second. So if you are sending an email, I'm on this template-based email, I'm going to go ahead and say send. I don't think a lot of people know of this one yet. Oh, it's going to make me pick a list. So in this configure delivery window, this is where there is my tracking, and you can actually change which folder it's going to end up in. So if you do this, it'll just automatically go to that folder. You don't have to think about it after the fact, but I showed you how you could also move it after if you forgot to do this step.
Thank you.
So the other part, and that's the immediate question is like, whoa, where's that data? What am I going to do? And for me, that's like, how am I going to continue to compare my email sends? I'm not going to remember, did I get a 20% open rate a year ago and now I'm getting 30? How do I know if I'm doing better? So Salesforce dashboards should provide a lot of insight here. There is an entire wiki out there on it, but I am going to say quickly, we do have these dashboards out there that exist on our Salesforce homepage, how your emails are performing or when your emails are performing, each with one devoted specifically to UCCS. And so when I expand this one, we will, the data of email sends did not go away from Salesforce and from this perspective. And so we'll still be able to get that historical comparison to future sends pretty seamlessly. So there's a filter here with our different business units. I did need to add a delete up here for those that are eventually going to be deleted and going away. But we can do some further finessing, and this would be something to kind of work through with Kayla a little bit, and then we'd get that request to me. But we can even get more granular to do like an individual from name. So let's say the Career Center, they're sharing the business unit with a bunch of other people. They don't want to see their other emails. They don't want their other emails compared to the Career Center email. So we're able to use data about from name to see how the Career Center emails have been performing, not just in the future, but going back even to 2019. So these Salesforce dashboards are really powerful. So again, for I hope dashboards will be good for now, but if you really do want that individual level tracking data, those old business units do still exist. We have time. There's a runway to snag it. If you're in a business unit that's getting deleted, though, that window is pretty small, the 31st of July. So we'll want to do that sooner rather than later. So if you do have any concerns around that, just touch base with Kayla sooner rather than later. So that covers some of the areas that you will need to change, making sure you add items to Content Builder, as well as adding it to your right tracking folder. Being aware of how to find your send classifications now. And so similar to that, we'll want to make sure you're able to find your audiences, either those data extensions or reports that you use. Just because of way of, in some cases, we've consolidated preferences or rename them slightly. That could have resulted in a little bit of a change of the name of your report or your data extension, but I think you'll get used to that pretty soon. So in the Centers and Institute business unit, we can see there's a fair amount of different groups sharing this business unit, but I did go ahead and send an email to myself just to show you what the constituent experience is like. So this one from the cybersecurity programs, when I go ahead to manage my preferences, down here at the bottom, we'll see a category reflecting that same folder structure. So presumably the constituent gets that cybersecurity email. If they do not want to receive them, they can opt out of those, but that does not mean they will not receive these other messages unless they, of course, opt out as well. You will find your data extensions in your groups folder with the abbreviation of your group preceding it as well, so that it's alphabetized and therefore grouped as well. Just that continued organization. And so we migrated those that have recently been used. And when we say recently used for UCCS, that means since March 1st of 2023. All other ones have been archived. So while they're not ready for you to use, they're still kind of sitting there. And so if you do need them, if there's a population from 2 years ago that, oh, I need that again, just ask your eComm specialist to make it available. Let them know it used to exist, and that should make it faster for them to turn it around. Just kind of unarchive it and make sure it's set up correctly before giving you access to use it. So just be mindful of that moving forward with your communications. And the other piece that you will see in there is that when you do, we'll go back, go to your data extensions. There is a similar folder structure there that your data extensions should reside in your folder. We've also gone ahead and added on the front end the CAR, that same abbreviation, so that you know which your data extensions are. And this is really, really important because I find this very annoying, but there's a folder structure when you're sending, which is really nice. But the step that you need to do before you ever get here of running your data extensions, we do not see that same folder structure. It is simply alphabetized. So those characters on the front end should help you. All right, y'all. I know I am at time. I did cover everything that was crucial through this project. Shouldn't be big changes. Keep poking around your account. Try to get an email out the door as normal. Like I said, most things should be there. But there's also going to be a point in time when there's not going to be something there. We moved data extensions. We didn't move all of them. We moved those that have been used recently, being the beginning of March. So there's an audience you used a year ago. It's not going to be there right now. You're going to have to ask for it again. So Kayla will need to do a little bit of work to make that available to you. So just be mindful of that with your communications moving forward. last thing I will mention is the opportunity to clean up your business units. Where you will need to work with your eComm specialist for data extensions or send classifications, sender profiles, delivery profiles. If you just see some in there that like, oh, I don't need these anymore, let's go ahead and delete them. You can work with them on that, but you can, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, go ahead and modify the folder structure within Content Builder, keeping it under at least your unit name underneath that. Feel free to do whatever you want. I know it's scary to delete things. I agree, especially in the shared space. You're not confident that it's your work. So one recommendation is to create a folder and name it Z Archive. And that's just going to make sure it goes at the bottom of the list, that Z preceding it. And then just put assets in there instead of deleting it. And then we can delete it down the road if nothing comes up. But that's a good safeguard. But there's a whole wiki out there on how to create folders and move assets all across Marketing Cloud that you can find here.